Meet Kanu, an old man who transformed into a young, charming man with a second chance at life. But with his newfound youth and power, Kanu is driven by a desire for revenge. Watch as he plots to seduce and defile the maidens who once mocked him. But Kanu's journey takes a dark turn. Witness the gripping climax as his true nature is revealed and justice is served, leading to his ultimate execution. In the vibrant Kingdom of Bakara, the market square buzzed with life. The air was thick with the scent of fresh produce, spices, and the chatter of villagers haggling for the best deals. Among the hustle and bustle, Okoro, a frail and hunched old man, shuffled through the crowd. His clothes were tattered, his face gaunt from days without food, and his eyes, once full of life, now reflected the depths of his misery. Years of drinking and gambling had driven his family away, leaving him to fend for himself in his old age. The market was a colorful mosaic of stalls, each adorned with vibrant fabrics, handmade crafts, and a variety of foods that made Okoro's stomach crumble painfully. He extended a shaky hand to passers-by, begging for anything to eat, but was largely ignored. His voice, weak from hunger, barely rose above the din of the market. As he wandered, Okoro's path crossed with 3 of the village maidens, their beauty and grace immediately setting them apart. They were part of the candidates for the upcoming beauty contest, an event held every 5 years to choose the king's new wife. According to tradition, the maidens had to be virgins, and this year's competition was fierce. Among them, Amara stood out, her presence commanding attention. She had long braided hair adorned with beads, skin that glowed like polished ebony, and eyes that sparkled with intelligence and determination. She was the clear favorite to win the contest. Spotting the maidens, Okoro's eyes lit up with desperate hope. Perhaps these young women, so full of life and potential, would take pity on him. He approached them, his voice trembling. "Please, kind maidens, could you spare a little food for an old man? I haven't eaten in days." The first maiden, Chinya, looked at him with disdain. "Who do you think you are, old man? One of us is to be the next queen, and we cannot let a beggar like you defile us with your presence." The second maiden, Ngozi, added with a sneer, "Aren't you the man whose family left him because he was too busy drinking and gambling? How pathetic." Humiliation washed over Okoro as the maidens laughed. He tried to defend himself, but his words were lost in their mockery. Finally, Amara stepped forward, tossing a coin at his feet. "Here, take this. Use it to eat your last meal and then hang yourself. Maybe then you'll finally reach heaven, or more likely, hell. That way, you won't die a second time on the way." The coin clinked on the ground, a cruel reminder of his worthlessness. Okoro, his spirit broken, bent down and picked it up. With tears streaming down his face, he shuffled away from the maidens, their laughter ringing in his ears. He used the coin to buy a small bowl of beans, eating it with tears of shame and despair. After finishing his meager meal, he returned to his small, dilapidated home, where he retrieved a rope. Determined to end his misery, Okoro ventured deep into the forest, seeking a place to end his life. He walked for hours, his legs heavy and his heart filled with sorrow. Finally, he found a serene spot, a clearing with a large tree adorned with a white cloth hanging from its branches. He thought to himself, "If I die here, perhaps I will finally find peace." Okoro tied the rope to the tree and prepared to hang himself. As he stood there, a sense of calm washed over him. But just as he was about to step off the makeshift stool he had found, a voice called out. "Stop!" The voice was firm yet gentle, resonating with a strange authority. Okoro turned to see a man in white robe standing at the edge of the clearing. The man's appearance was almost ethereal, with an aura of calm and wisdom surrounding him. His eyes, deep and knowing, seemed to see right through Okoro. "Who are you?" Okoro asked, his voice barely a whisper as he followed the voice. "This is a sacred place, a shrine to the spirits of our ancestors. Why do you seek to end your life here?" Tears welled up in Okoro's eyes as he recounted his tale of misery and despair. The priest listened patiently, his expression full of compassion. When Okoro finished, the priest nodded thoughtfully. "You have made mistakes as a young man and suffered the consequences greatly, but taking your own life is not the answer. There is still hope for you." Okoro shook his head. "Hope? What hope is there for a wretch like me?" The priest reached into a white calabash he carried and took out a single kola nut. "Take this," he said, offering the kola nut to Okoro. "Swallow it, and your deepest wish will be granted. But remember this. Whatever you do or give to others will come back to you in multiple folds. Use this gift wisely and don't repeat your mistakes." Skeptical but with nothing left to lose, Okoro took the kola nut and swallowed it. A strange warmth spread through his body, but he felt no immediate change. The priest smiled and placed a hand on Okoro's shoulder. "Go home, old man, and take a good rest." Confused and exhausted, Okoro nodded and slowly made his way back to his hut. That night, he fell into a deep sleep, his body and mind too tired to ponder the priest's words. When Okoro awoke the next morning, he felt different. His body was no longer weak and frail, but he paid no attention to it. Instead, the weight of his misery and the previous day's humiliation still hung heavily over him. Determined to end his suffering once and for all, he decided to find a quiet place to hang himself, where no one would stop him. As Okoro walked through the village, lost in his dark thoughts, he began to notice something strange. People were staring at him, their eyes wide with admiration and curiosity. Men nodded respectfully, and women smiled at him, some even giggling as he passed by. Confused and disoriented, he continued on his path until a middle-aged woman approached him, her eyes filled with admiration. "Are you new in the village?" she asked, her tone flirtatious. "I haven't seen you around before. You must be quite special to stand out so much." Perplexed by the attention, Okoro mumbled a response and hurried away, his heart pounding. He needed to understand what was happening. He ran to the market where mirror sellers displayed their wares. Desperation drove him to one of the stalls, where he grabbed a mirror and stared at his reflection. To his astonishment, the image that greeted him was indeed his own, but transformed. The haggard old man he had been was gone, replaced by a handsome, vibrant young man. His once gaunt face was now full of life, and his eyes sparkled with youthful energy. Okoro's mind raced as he tried to comprehend the miracle before him. He touched his face, his chest, his arms, confirming that what he saw was real. The villagers around him, noticing his shock, began to gather, curious about his reaction. Whispers of admiration and curiosity filled the air as they speculated about the identity of the striking young man. A mix of shock and joy filled Okoro's heart. He couldn't believe what had happened. The priest's words echoed in his mind, "Your deepest wish will be granted." Determined to see if anyone would recognize him, he decided to venture out into the village. As he walked through the market, people stared at him, intrigued by his appearance. He caught the eye of the same middle-aged woman who had approached him earlier. Her name was Neka. She smiled warmly and walked over to him again. "I saw you earlier. Why did you run away?" she asked, her eyes still filled with interest. At that moment, Okoro's stomach rumbled loudly, betraying his hunger. Neka chuckled softly. "You must be starving. Come to my house, and I'll give you something to eat." Okoro had no choice but to agree, his hunger overpowering any reservations he had. She led him to her home, a modest but cozy dwelling on the outskirts of the village. As they sat down to eat, Okoro devoured the food gratefully, savoring every bite. After the meal, Neka began asking him questions. "What is your name, and where do you come from? I haven't seen you around here before." Okoro hesitated for a moment before answering, "My name is Kanu. I am new to this village, looking for a fresh start." Neka nodded, seemingly satisfied with his response. "Well, Kanu, you are welcome here. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask." She then complimented his new name and handed him some money. Neka's eyes twinkled with a mischievous glint. "You know, Kanu, my husband is still on a journey. I'm all alone, and I could give you a lot more if you stay with me tonight," she said, her tone turning suggestive. Okoro, seeing an opportunity to secure his future, agreed, albeit nervously. Just as they were about to proceed, Neka's husband returned unexpectedly. Panic set in, and Okoro scrambled to hide under the bed. The scene that followed was both tense and comical. Neka's husband, a burly man, entered inside. Noticing the changes in the room, he knew that a stranger was in the house. He then wielded a cutlass from the back of the door, searching for the intruder. Okoro tried to stay as quiet as possible, but the husband soon discovered him hiding under the bed. "Who are you?" he roared, swinging the cutlass wildly. Okoro darted out from under the bed, narrowly avoiding the blade, and ran towards the window. What followed was a chaotic chase through the village. Okoro sprinted through the streets, the furious husband hot on his heels with the cutlass raised high. He ducked and dodged, narrowly avoiding the swinging blade. He sprinted through the village, weaving between houses and jumping over fences, with the angry husband hot on his heels. Villagers watched in astonishment, some laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Okoro's heart raced as he finally managed to lose the husband in the crowded market square. He collapsed behind a store, panting and laughing at the absurdity of it all. Despite the chaos, Okoro couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation. He had a second chance at life, and he was determined to make the most of it. He decided to change his name to Kanu, shedding his old identity completely. He returned to his hut, pondering on a more stable way to support himself. The next day, Kenny decided to get a wheelbarrow to help the villagers carry goods to the market. And from the money Neke gave him, he bought a wheelbarrow to at least find some work to do in the market. As he paid and took the wheelbarrow home, he then found the money he had spent on his bed. He was shocked and took the money, but it had already doubled. He ran out and gave a little money to a beggar, and as he entered his house, he found it doubled on the bed. He then knew he wouldn't have to work ever again. He started using his new name and used the wheelbarrow to earn some money while giving it all out. Sometimes, the money would increase fivefold. He didn't care how it happened but was focused on becoming rich. He met with Neka again, fulfilled her desires, and got the money for a new house. He decided to discard the old hut as most people had the knowledge that a wretched old man had lived there. Kanu embraced his new identity and began using his wealth to gain influence. He became known for his generosity, giving money to those in need and helping to improve the village. His fame and fortune grew rapidly, and he quickly became a respected figure in Bakara. His generosity knew no bounds, and sometimes the money he gave away would increase fivefold, making him even wealthier. Emboldened by his newfound wealth and youth, Kanu resumed his old habits of drinking and gambling. He also began sleeping with different women who couldn't resist his beauty and recklessness. His fame as the handsome stranger spread throughout the village, and as he became richer, parents in the village would visit him, offering their daughters for marriage. However, Kanu put on the act of a responsible young man, always careful to maintain his newfound reputation. Despite his outward charm and generosity, Kanu's life was filled with hidden debauchery. His nights were spent in revelry, gambling away large sums of money and indulging in his vices. Yet, no matter how much he spent, the money always seemed to return to him in greater amounts. His wealth grew exponentially, and with it, his influence in the village. Kanu's life had taken a remarkable turn, from a destitute old man to a wealthy, influential figure. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous, and he reveled in the luxuries and pleasures that his new life afforded him. On a fateful day, he was walking by the market when he sighted the maidens afar off. The memory of the evil words they spoke to him flashed in his mind, and his hunger for revenge increased at an instant. But how will he take his revenge? Since their virginity was so precious to them, he decided to take it all. As he approached them, he noticed they were at an orange store, selecting the ripest fruits. The maidens laughed and chatted happily, unaware of his presence. Amara, the most beautiful among them, was easily recognizable with her long braided hair adorned with beads and her radiant skin. Kanu decided to use his charm and wit. "Ladies," he began with a smile, "it seems even the Onjis are jealous of your beauty today. They wish they could be as sweet as you." The maidens giggled at his words. Chinya, the first maiden, smiled back. "Oh, do they now? Maybe we should ask the Onjis if they mind us picking the best of them." "Well," Kanu said, picking up an orange and holding it up to his ear, "this one says it would be honored to be chosen by such lovely maidens." The maidens laughed louder. Chinya blushed at his charm, while Ngozi, the third maiden, playfully nudged her. "Looks like we have a sweet talker here." However, Amara, always the voice of reason, soon made them realize that though he was handsome and good-looking, they should focus more on the big prize, the contest. "Ladies, let's not get distracted. Remember, we have the contest to think about. Let's choose our Onjis and head back." Despite their laughter, Amara's words struck a chord, and the maidens refocused on their task. Kanu felt a pang of frustration. If he couldn't target them as a whole, he would take them down one by one. Kanu started with Chinya. Using his charm and newfound wealth, he began to woo her. He showered her with gifts and sweet words, playing on her insecurities and desire for attention. It didn't take long before Chinya succumbed to his advances, and he defiled her, making her promise to keep silent or face expulsion from the palace. Next, Kanu set his sights on Ngozi. He used a similar approach, but this time he played on her dreams of a better future. He promised her a life of luxury and love, far beyond what the contest could offer. Ngozi, captivated by his promises and his looks, also fell for his tricks and lost her virginity to him. However, When he tried to seduce Amara, she turned him down firmly. "I have a future to think about, Kanu," she said, her eyes filled with determination. "I won't be distracted by your charms. My focus is on winning the contest and becoming queen." Despite her rejection, Kanu's desire for revenge only grew stronger. He continued to plot, determined to find a way to conquer her as well. Meanwhile, the preparations for the beauty contest were in full swing. The palace buzzed with excitement, and the maidens practiced their dances and refined their appearances, each hoping to win the coveted title. On the day of the contest, the palace courtyard was transformed into a grand stage. Colorful banners and flowers adorned the area, and villagers gathered to watch the spectacle. The maidens, dressed in their finest traditional attire, performed their dances one by one. Amara's performance was particularly captivating. She moved with grace and elegance, her beauty radiating with each step. The audience was mesmerized by her unique dancing style, a blend of traditional and contemporary moves that showcased her talent and charisma. When the contest concluded, the king announced Amara as the winner. She was crowned the new queen, and the villagers erupted in cheers. Kanu watched from the sidelines, his mind racing with thoughts of revenge. He had to get close to Amara, now more than ever. Foolishly consumed by revenge, Kanu began plotting his next move to sleep with the young queen, Amara. His determination to ruin her was stronger than ever, driving him to further depths of deceit and manipulation. He decided to use his charm and wealth to win over the villagers and gain access to the palace. Kanu donated generously to various village projects, funded the construction of a new well, and provided for the needy. His actions caught the attention of the king, who invited him to the palace to discuss his contributions to the village. At the palace, Kanu presented himself as a well-meaning benefactor eager to help the kingdom prosper. The king, impressed by his generosity and vision, granted him access to the palace grounds. Kanu was introduced to the palace staff and given free rein to come and go as he pleased. Kanu's real target, however, was the maidens, especially Amara. He began to charm the palace maidens, using his wealth and good looks to seduce them. One by one, they fell for his tricks, and he defiled many of them, threatening them to keep silent or face expulsion from the palace. Among Amara's servants was Chika, whom Kanu had tried so hard to seduce. Chika, unlike the others, sensed something sinister about Kanu. She noticed the growing number of palace maidens who seemed distressed and withdrawn. Suspecting that Kanu was behind it, she decided to keep a close eye on him. Kanu used his charm and influence to ingratiate himself further with the palace staff. He continued to seduce the maidens, always careful to keep his actions hidden. His goal was clear: to defile Amara and exact his revenge. But as he plotted his next move, Chike continued to watch him, waiting for the right moment to expose his true nature. Kanu, now known throughout the village as a benefactor and man of wealth, reveled in his newfound status. He was careful, always maintaining his charming facade, winning over the trust of the palace staff and guards with his generosity. He continued to seduce and defile the palace maidens, using threats to ensure their silence. Each conquest emboldened him, pushing him closer to his ultimate goal, Amara. Kanu's frequent presence in the palace did not go unnoticed by Amara. Despite her initial caution, she found herself drawn to Kanu's apparent charm and generosity. He approached her with respect, always careful to appear genuine in his intentions. One evening, during a royal banquet, Kanu managed to catch Amara alone in the garden. "Your Highness," Kanu began, bowing slightly. May I have a moment of your time? Amara turned to face him, her regal presence illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns. Of course, Kanu. What is it you wish to discuss? Kanu smiled, his eyes gleaming with feigned sincerity. I wanted to express my admiration for your grace and beauty. Your performance at the contest was truly enchanting. Amara blushed slightly, taken aback by his compliment. Thank you, Kanu. It means a lot coming from someone as respected as you. Encouraged by her response, Kanu continued, I also wanted to discuss some ideas I have to improve the village. With your support, I believe we can make Bakara even more prosperous. Amara listened intently as Kanu outlined his plans, impressed by his vision and dedication to the kingdom. As the evening progressed, Kanu skillfully steered the conversation towards more personal topics, gradually breaking down Amara's initial reservations. He made sure to weave in stories of his humble beginnings and the hardships he had overcome, painting himself as a reformed man with a heart full of good intentions. Over the next few weeks, Kanu and Amara's interactions became more frequent. He continued to charm her, always careful to respect her boundaries and never pushing too hard. One evening, Kanu found his opportunity. The palace was hosting a grand celebration of the king's birthday. The courtyard was filled with music, laughter, and the aroma of delicious food. Kanu mingled with the guests, his eyes constantly scanning for Amara. Finally, he spotted her standing near the edge of the courtyard, engaged in conversation with some of the palace maidens. Kanu managed to steal a few moments alone with Amara. He spoke of his admiration for her and their common vision for the kingdom. Amara, touched by his words, began to lower her guard. Kanu, she said softly, I have come to trust you. Your dedication to the village and your kindness have not gone unnoticed. Kanu smiled, sensing his moment. Thank you, Your Highness. I care deeply for you and our kingdom. Together, we can achieve great things. Before he could continue, Chika appeared, her expression serious. Your Highness, may I have a word? Amara looked at Chika, then back at Kanu. Of course, Chika. Excuse me, Kanu nodded, watching them leave with a mix of frustration and determination. He knew he was close, but he also knew he had to be patient. His plan was still in motion, and he was confident that he would soon achieve his goal. Kanu, now fully entrenched in his role as a benefactor, used his charm and newfound wealth to navigate the intricate social web of the palace. His donations and projects had garnered him a reputation as a man of integrity and vision, allowing him almost unrestricted access to the palace grounds. His ultimate goal, however, remained the same: to defile Amara and exact his revenge. As he spent more time within the palace, his relationship with Amara grew closer as well. He attended every event she was present at, always ensuring that he had an opportunity to speak with her. His words were carefully chosen, designed to build her trust and admiration. Over the next few days, Kanu continued his attempts to isolate Amara, always under the watchful eyes of Chika. His patience was wearing thin, and his desperation to achieve his goal was becoming more apparent. Finally, he saw his opportunity. Late one night, as the palace was quiet and most of its inhabitants were asleep, Kanu slipped through the halls, making his way to Amara's chambers. He was surprised to see the guards distracted and that the other maidens were occupied. Unknown to Kanu, Amara had invited her friends, Chinya and Ngozi, to her chambers and ordered the guards and maidens to give them enough space to interact. Her friends had been avoiding her and refused to tell her the truth about being defiled and abandoned by Kanu. That night, she hoped to mend their friendship and understand their sudden change in behavior. Kanu saw this as a lifetime opportunity. His heart pounded with anticipation as he approached Amara's door. Inside, Amara was arranging her royal beads, unaware of the danger that lurked just outside her door. Seeing the door unlocked, Kanu entered silently, closing the door behind him. He moved swiftly, his eyes fixed on Amara. "Amara," he whispered urgently. She turned, startled. "Kanu, what are you doing here?" He stepped closer, his expression a mix of desperation and determination. "Amara, I can't hide my feelings any longer. I need you." Amara backed away, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Kanu, this is not appropriate. You need to leave." Kanu ignored her words, his mind consumed by his desire for revenge. He reached out, grabbing her arm. "No, Amara. You belong to me." As Kanu's grip tightened, Amara struggled against him, her heart pounding with fear. She tried to call for help, but Kanu covered her mouth, silencing her cries. Just as he was about to force himself on her, Chinyo and Ngozi entered the room. Both maidens screamed for help, their voices echoing through the halls and drawing the attention of the palace guards. The guards burst into the room, weapons drawn. Kanu froze, realizing he had been caught. He released Amara and turned to face the guards, his mind racing for a way out. But it was too late. The guards seized him, dragging him away as he struggled futilely. Amara, shaken but unharmed, tears streaming down her face, rushed to where Chinya and Ngozi were standing, their faces fixed on Kanu, the man who had robbed them of their virginity. "Are you all right, Amara?" Chinya asked, her voice trembling. Amara nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, thanks to you both. Thank you for saving me." The palace was in an uproar as word of Kanu's action spread. The king, furious and heartbroken by the betrayal, ordered a swift trial for Kanu. Using this opportunity, Chai gathered the defiled royal servants, who had lived in fear of his threats, urging them to testify against him before the king. Their stories painted a grim picture of deceit and manipulation. The trial was brief. The evidence against Kanu was overwhelming, and his guilt was clear. The king sentenced him to be beheaded, a punishment reserved for the most heinous of crimes. The servants who had been defiled were offered support, but their lives would never be the same, as they were dismissed from the palace. The shame and stigma they faced were harsh reminders of the price of Kanu's actions. As the sun set over the village of Bakara, justice was served. The moment of Kanu's execution had arrived. The village square, usually a place of bustling activity and vibrant markets, was somber. The sky was overcast as if the heavens themselves were mourning the tragic end of a man who had squandered his second chance. The villagers gathered in silence, their faces reflecting a mix of sorrow and relief. Kanu, once a young and handsome man who had captivated the hearts of many, was now a shadow of his former self. His hands were bound, and he was flanked by guards as he was led to the execution platform. His heart pounded with fear, his mind racing with thoughts of regret and desperation. As he was brought forward, Kanu's eyes scanned the crowd, searching for any sign of compassion or hope. He saw the familiar faces of the maidens he had defiled, their expressions a mix of anger and sorrow. He saw the villagers who had once admired him, their eyes filled with disappointment. And then he saw the priest, standing stoically among the spectators. Kanu's voice trembled as he called out to the priest. "Please, forgive me. I was wrong. Give me another chance." The priest's gaze remained steady, his expression unchanged as he spoke in a tone that only Kanu could hear. "Kanu, you were given a gift, and you chose to misuse it. Your actions have brought pain and suffering to many. Now, you must face the consequences." Tears streamed down Kanu's face as the realization of his fate sank in. The executioner, a tall man with a solemn expression, approached with his blade. The crowd watched in hushed anticipation, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. The executioner raised his blade, and with a swift, clean motion, Kanu's life was ended. The sound of the blade slicing through the air was followed by a collective gasp from the crowd. Kanu's body fell to the ground, lifeless and still. In the aftermath of Kanu's execution, Amara and her friends, Chinya and Ngozi, found solace in each other's company. The bond between them grew stronger as they supported one another through their shared trauma. The village, recognizing the bravery and resilience of the three leaders, the resolution between Amara and her friends marked a new beginning, a time of hope, resilience, and unwavering commitment to upholding the values of honor and integrity for generations to come. The lesson was clear. The village of Bakara, with its vibrant market, lush gardens, and rich traditions, stood as a testament to the resilience and strength of its people. And so, the story of Kanu, the old man who became young again but made a foolish decision, became a tale of caution and reflection that reminded all who heard it of the enduring power of choice and the importance of living a life of honor and integrity. Kanu's story was a timeless lesson woven into the very fabric of Bakara's heritage, guiding its people with wisdom and tradition. And so, the tale of Kanu serves as a timeless reminder of the power of choices and the importance of living a life of honor and integrity. Let his story inspire us all to reflect on our actions and strive for wisdom in every decision we make. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the rich heritage of Bakara. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating African folktales. Until next time, may wisdom and tradition guide your path.